Empire Strikes Back is the easy choice for which is the best movie of the original trilogy. And I think there's a couple reasons for that. First of all, it's super hard to make three movies right in a row that are universally accepted as being great. In fact, it's not even just movies. Three seasons of a TV show, three movies, three books, three albums. It is really hard to do the same creative thing three times in a row and have it be accepted as an absolute classic. I think for an entire generation of people from 77 to 83, let's just say the 8-year-olds in 77 were the 14-year-olds in 83. And when Return of the Jedi comes out with its Ewoks and certain other elements, you're probably more likely to reject that than you were when you were 10, when Empire Strikes Back came out and it hits the sweet spot for you. So I think that's kind of some of the reasons people like Empire Strikes Back more than other movies. It takes what it built on in the original Star Wars and expands it, expands the universe, expands its characters, and does that before Return of the Jedi comes in, and the formula starts to get a little, a little samey. But we'll talk about Return of the Jedi in the next video. Empire Strikes Back. When I think about Empire Strikes Back, I think of it just being the classic middle part of a story. So for an entire generation of people, I think when you talk about storytelling and talking about middle, beginnings, and ends, you can talk about the Star Wars original trilogy because everybody knows it and everybody is familiar with its elements. You can talk about them. Empire Strikes Back is a perfect example of a middle story because you had your heroes at the beginning in A New Hope that they're introduced and they triumph over their initial goal and everything's happy. And Empire Strikes Back, that's when the reality of the situation and the power of the thing they're working against really comes into play and reminds them that yes, your goals are difficult, the world is difficult, shit happens. In this movie, your heroes struggle. The rebellion is being chased the whole time and only barely gets away at the beginning thanks to its ingenuity and resources at its disposal. The Empire feels very strong and very powerful, and through increased technical ability and finances are able to depict them as being a very powerful army with a bunch of stormtroopers and giant walking tanks and a bunch of starships and all that. You have your heroes go through their struggles. Luke struggles mentally a lot on Dagobah, figuring out who he is and what he needs to do and stuff like that. He goes through a lot at the end of the movie in the climax. He gets his hand chopped off. Mark Hamill physically went through a lot before this movie. He had some kind of, I think it was a car crash or something, so he's physically scarred to go with the evolution of his character in some sort of weird turn of events. You've got Han Solo is encased in carbonite and all of that, and Princess Leia is going through growth and her realization that she loves this asshole, and now he's being taken away and all that sort of thing. So you even see it in the villain, the growth of like he's not just he's more of a fleshed out character. He's got levels. He's obviously some kind of human that's massively disfigured. He's related to people. He's a character that might even be working against his greater enemy or greater leader. You find out about that leader more. Like there's a lot that goes on in this movie in that the characters go through a bunch. You have questions by the end of the film that you want to see in the final film. Everything gets fleshed out more. Like this is a perfect example of the middle part of the story. And you might notice I'm not talking a lot about the individual things that happened in this movie because, well, sometimes they're not quite as iconic as the Death Star run or anything like that. But this movie has great scenes when it comes to the land war that you didn't really get to see in the first movie. All the training sequences on Dagobah and all those topics discussed. The music is great, obviously. Cloud City is a brand new location. You see friends of Han Solo with Lando and what he's doing and bounty hunters. And there's a lot of things going on. You see the romance between Han Solo and Princess Leia. That's great and way better than anything in the prequels when it comes to its romantic tendencies. Like this is the storyline that my mom gives a crap about when it comes to this movie. I'm not saying it as a stereotype. I'm saying that's what she's told me she enjoys about the original trilogy, and that there's something that she can hook her interests into. So why this might not be the best movie of the trilogy for some people, it's dark, right? The heroes don't triumph. It's not the happy adventure movie that happens in the first movie. Shit happens. Like Han Solo might never come back. Luke gets his hand chopped off. It doesn't follow the spirit of Star Wars, which is something that people talked about when it came to Last Jedi. This was not universally accepted originally when it came out. There were mixed reviews, and it has grown in time. Maybe it'll happen with Last Jedi too. Who knows? But one last thing to talk about that's not really, I suppose, could be a hindrance to this movie, but is usually accepted as being a great thing about this movie. The plot twist. The fact that Obi-Wan was being metaphorical and not literal when he meant that Darth Vader killed Luke's father. And that Darth Vader is actually Luke's father. I cannot imagine watching this movie in 1980, going in and being like, holy fucking shit, Darth Vader is Luke's father. Now, whether or not this movie and this story always intended for Darth Vader to be Luke's father will be continually up for debate, because Lucas always changes what he says about it, and there's all sorts of mixed information. But regardless of whether or not it was intended, the story evolved to the point where Darth Vader is Luke's father. And that is an emotional climax to this movie. Holy crap. I think that would be a prime reason to, if you were showing these movies to your children, why you would start with the original trilogy and just follow through on the production order, because that twist is great. And maybe if you're younger and you automatically know that, that twist is not as great, but it's framed incredibly well. So, Empire Strikes Back. Good movie. Potentially the greatest. That's up for you to decide. Let me know what you think about the plot twist and all that sort of stuff. Did you always grow up with the knowledge that Darth Vader was Luke's father? I don't even know if I did. Like, I have no idea. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Maybe it was a surprise to me. Don't know. I would have to ask my dad.